welcome to Nature's Wisdom podcast with Lloyd and Danielle Bryant, discussing and exploring life and learning with the biological laws of nature. Hi everyone, welcome to Nature's Wisdom podcast. And today we're going to look at my article, Don't Bypass the Science. And in this article, we discuss why a basic understanding of all 5 of the biological laws of German new medicine, or Germanische Heilkunde, is essential and not optional for true healing. There are an increasing number of teachers of the biological laws who all have their own way of sharing the information. I recommend learning from several different teachers, as you will likely pick up different things from each of them. There are some who stick to a methodical scientific approach, though many offer shortcuts to G&M, GHK concepts, presenting diluted versions with little or no science, and some focus only on emotional release or positive mindset without explaining the underlying biological framework. These approaches may feel more accessible, but they often prevent the profound paradigm shift required for lasting change. The result? People try to let the body heal itself, yet feel stuck when symptoms persist or worsen. In my G&M groups, I frequently hear questions like, can I just use G&M for this symptom? I tried releasing the conflict, but it's not getting better. These struggles usually stem from an incomplete understanding. Without the full foundation, the subconscious mind doesn't fully shift, and the biology doesn't respond as expected. It's the paradigm shift that releases fear. German new medicine, Germanische Heilkunde, developed by Dr. Lloyd, explains that so-called illnesses are not random malfunctions or enemies to fight, but as significant biological special programs, or SBS, meaningful, purposeful responses to unexpected distress. At the heart of his work are the empirically discovered 5 biological laws that describe how the psyche, brain, and organs operate as one unified system. Learning these laws methodically creates a mind-blowing aha moment that opens the door to real transformation. This is why I emphasize the need for learning through the laws, and why I offer methodical walkthroughs of them, as it gives the whole picture. I ensure those who then want to explore life and healing in my further teachings always have that foundation. Even if the science feels dense at first, even if you don't fully understand, even if science isn't your thing, being aware of it and sitting with its precision and wonder often shifts consciousness deeply enough for the body to respond accordingly. I often say at my lectures and in my videos, don't worry if a lot of it goes over your head. You just need to grasp the concepts. But that doesn't mean bypassing them completely. Allow its complexity to inspire you. Third law really does have that wow factor. And let it totally blow your mind, as this is what opens it to change. When these laws are understood in detail, fear of cancer and other diseases begins to dissolve. Symptoms are no longer seen as random threats, but as predictable parts of a purposeful process. This shift reduces the terror that can keep a person locked in conflict activity and allows the body to move through healing without panic-driven interference. Why the science is non-negotiable. Students who have learned from books and taken courses without the methodical science have later told me they only truly understood it after encountering the detailed explanations. The precision fills gaps, connects the dots, and creates the deep subconscious resonance needed for biological change. Shortcuts that skip the science or turn it into vague theories may reach more people because they feel more comfortable, gentler, and easier. But they unintentionally do a disservice without the full foundation, the paradigm shift remains superficial. The comfortable, diluted versions spread farther, yet many people never experience the life-changing release from fear that comes with grasping nature's detailed intelligence and wisdom. Even if science isn't your favorite subject, be patient and work through it. Sit in awe of how precisely the psyche-brain organ connection operates. That wonder itself often opens the door to transformation. A call to stay true to the foundation. Those who dilute GNM to make it more palatable may attract bigger audiences. Meanwhile, teachers committed to Dr. Harmer's original scientific framework sometimes face greater challenges. Shadow banning, removed content, or limited visibility. Whether this is deliberate or simply the result of platforms favouring less controversial material is anyone's guess. This is not an attack on these teachers, as they put out very useful content for those who know the laws and have experienced the shift. But I call to those and their students to ensure that they have a foundation of the science. If they do not want to be involved in teaching it themselves, initially direct them to where they can walk through the science so that they can have the full experience. His real healing demands the full picture, a complete change in mindset, one that resonates deeply enough for the biology to respond. This requires more than surface level tools. It requires the biological laws. So don't bypass them. Embrace the science, even when it challenges your previous beliefs. That is where your body will find the true freedom it requires to do what it was ultimately created to do, heal itself.
Yeah, good point of discussion.
So, you got anything to say?
Yeah, so as you say, wherever people are introduced to the laws, or even a watered down or just the basic concepts of it, it's bringing them to the subject, making them aware of it. But there is the danger, obviously, that they think that that diluted or very concise version is it, and they don't want to delve further. So, I mean, there is a lot to be said for, it is a challenge because it's such a paradigm shift to get people onto the subject. But I think the balance there that you put is good, is to take the challenge to not ignore the science and be aware of it, because that's really what shifted for us, I think, is, understanding it. And then you get to a point where you just can't see how it can be any other way. Whereas I think a watered down version might, resonate, but it's more like having yet another modality, of which there's already many out there.
This is another theory because you haven't been exposed to the full depth of it. Yeah. But I mean, I don't think it even needs an understanding, it just needs an awareness. So if you look at clients that come in and they'll look at the wall chart. So I might sort of introduce them to a few concepts, or if they've got a symptom and I say, just introduce a little bit. And then they look at the wall chart and I say, well, that's all the science. And they go, wow. And then they know it's a thing because there's so much science behind it. They don't have to read every single word as such,
Yeah.
And they don't have to absorb everything. So, but sitting and allowing yourself to see the science, I think, to just for it to be there and be aware of it. And, some of it will go in. And I think that people who say that I'm not going to understand, I'm not sciencey and that, I haven't got time to sit through it. Or well, I suppose not having time to sit through is another thing, but, it's just not my thing. I'm not going to resonate with it or whatever. I think, or I'm not going to understand it because I've never understood science. I think, they're underestimating themselves because this triggers common sense. And it's a different thing, it just makes so much sense. Now, the third law, I said about having the wow factor, you don't have to totally understand everything about it. It's just like a little bit of the concept of it and think, wow, look how detailed it is.
Yeah.
And when you get to things like the temporal lobe and the the back and forth of the left and right hand and the hormone status and all like this, I mean, you just think, wow, look how precise it is.
It just shows the thoroughness that was involved.
It shows the precision and the thoroughness, and it's just like appreciating that it does have that, and seeing it allows you to sort of accept that rather than just like knowing of it. You've seen it for your own eyes. You've witnessed that thing, and it's sort of that. It's just that in itself. You don't have to understand. Okay, then if I've got this symptom, then blah blah blah. Back and forth. You don't have to be able to work it out. You don't have to know it in that depth, but you have to be exposed to it. I think that's the word. Just you have to be expose yourself to it, and expose yourself to it with this open mind that where you forget everything else.
Yeah, what do you always say when you're doing the presentations in person when we're doing them for a group? Is like for the next hour or two to let go, and that is the best way, because your mind is naturally going to try and fit it in with your current things. Whereas if you let go of it for a couple of hours or however long, let go of any preconceptions of anything, just try to absorb it, and it does make a lot of sense. I defy someone to say, oh, well, it doesn't make any sense. It makes a lot more sense than metastases, all these other things. So it does make a lot of sense once you get that in there, and then some things will, a lot of things will still resonate. You'll just view them from a different perspective. Things you've had successes with in the past. They might still be viable for you. Some of them you might think, all I was doing was suppressing symptoms then, and you might think, well, okay, that's still got its place, or something for pain relief, and then the symptoms took longer for them to resolve, to go through the healing. But once you got that knowledge, it's an informed decision. So it's exactly what you say in the presentations, is try to open your mind, let it in. And exactly as you said as well, we've had a couple of people say to us, haven't we, well, they like a certain particular style because they keep it simple, they keep it, they introduce the concepts without going into the science. And they don't want to maybe, burden their listeners or followers with too much detail, but this, like you said, a little bit of a disservice that they underestimating them on the one hand, but then on the other hand is, without that exposure to them, even if you don't fully grasp it, you'll pick up something from it. And we pick up things, and we've seen things dozens of times, or someone else presenting something to do with the laws, and they've learned a lot from us, and then we watch their presentation, we think, oh, that's a really good way of putting something, or some added value we get from that, and just some little aspect resonates a little bit deeper, whatever it is. So it's exactly what you say. We've got a particular way of explaining things. Well, even that you say I'm a little bit more grounded, and I'll take the sort of 50,000 foot view type thing, and you're a little bit more, because you've got more of a therapy background, so you're more aware of organs and different things. So even that, we've got a slightly different way, which hopefully complements each other. But yeah, I just feel it's a disservice if you don't try introducing those some of the laws, some of the detail of the laws, enough for them to whet their appetite and give them the opportunity to see if it resonates with them. And just one or two sentences that you've just gone in there, they might just recall when they're faced with a challenge or something, might be to do with epicrisis, and they recognize it as being epicrisis, and not understanding the epicrisis from a sort of the full picture of the compass and knowing what's going on, because you've had a watered down version of it, or an oversimplified version. Don't want to sound negative, but so maybe you've oversimplified it and taken the sort of laws element out of it. Might not be, it might be a little bit diluted too far.
Doesn't get the mustard.
It might be an oversimplified.
Yeah.
So I just think, try to present in stuff in a way that gives the opportunity, like here's the law thing, even saying, we're going to step into this now, so this is a little bit, so just take in what you can, but don't pressure over it. I think that's the right approach, and definitely this the sort of feedback that we get as well. Even to the extent that we ourselves have we had different presentations. We had the early way of presenting. Danielle effectively has done the refining over time. I've done a little bit with doing things with computers like 3D visualizing things or whatever. And then, but we can be people we've already spoken to before that then we do it in a different way again, and then they pick up extra information. So it's like you can't overdo it, isn't it? I think that the danger is overdoing it is when people aren't receptive to it, and then there's certainly an element that they'll close up on it.
You're pushing further and further away then.
Yeah. So that we're not saying that you need to do that, but obviously if you've gotten some people interested, you've got them receptive to the information, it's just don't like hide the laws, because I think that, you're going to hit a point where if you're not getting the laws, it's sort of like whatever information's been presented without the laws behind it, it's going to be siloed, it's going to be restricted in its potential, and then people are still not realizing the full potential.
I think that for me, in my journey of learning, at the beginning, I didn't understand a lot of, like, say, keep coming back to the third law because that's the most complex thing. With the germ layers and the embryology and all of this, I understood parrot fashion, I suppose, the colours and this is that germ layer, but I didn't know what a germ layer was. I understood that yellow group behaved like this, and it was these, but it's but it wasn't really sort of to understand. It was more parrot fashion right at the start that I kind of learned it and understood it. Like you could say I didn't understand it, but what I found has been the biggest impact, because at the time then, when I was learning a bit of parrot fashion, and I'd never really sort of set out to think I want to teach this. I just couldn't keep my mouth shut about it, because it's just such a mind-blowing thing, that I just wanted to tell everyone. That's just happened organically, really. And at the start, I was just like regurgitating it, parrot fashion, I would say. But I've gone off on a thread now, like I always do, and I've got to try and come back to the main tree trunk of my my original point. Oh yeah. So, but on my learning journey, the transformation happened bit by bit in these light bulb moments, these aha moments, which only the science can give you, because when you're given the evidence and the explanation and you realize something, that's when that light bulb will ping. And that realization then goes into your subconscious. It doesn't just stay there as a parrot passion thing. That's what filters it down. It's got to get past the consciousness. It's got to get in there into the subconscious, because that is when you get the biological reactions. That is when your body stops responding with fear, or if it's still, sort of like sometimes, say for example, I go to the toilet, there's a load of blood down the pan and I didn't expect it. I'm gonna like think, oh my God, and panic a little bit, because it's inbred in us, but quickly now, when something's that's just a hypothetical thing, but when something like that has happened that might be a bit scary without the knowledge of GNM, within a minute I've brought myself down to earth and thought, hang on a second, well, I've just gone through this, so this must be this, and therefore they all make sense, so I'm not worried. So that the fear quickly dissipates, and in fact some things that have happened in the last couple of years that I haven't had that fear response, so it kind of, it does take a while, but what I'm trying to say is, when you sort of learning it parrot fashion and not allowing yourself to be open to the side, even if it's not your thing, even if you're not understanding the full thing, there will be these little things, these little light bulbs that you think, ah, that's what it means. That's, and those are the moments when it filters down and you start losing that fear. Because what happened originally, when I was totally in the parrot passion sort of phase, if you like, I started to fear conflict shocks, because then, I obviously still had the fear of disease or the fear of cancer. So then I would fear having a conflict shock, and I wanted to wrap myself in cotton wool and that. So that is kind of like a bit of a side effect, of the first phase, I suppose, of healing, when you're learning up here, but it's not getting down there. But you need the proof, you need the evidence. Where it's part of our human nature to need evidence and to need things backed up, especially when they're against what we believe and what we've come to believe. So yeah, I just think it's really important to have that. And it's not just based on how I feel, that's based on what I've seen in people as well.
I'm pretty sure I didn't have that phase with you, like you said, that because
Well, yeah,
it
that
was
was
kind
my
of like my
experience.
original way. I've always been more laid back, maybe. Um, but what I will say is that from our experience, you presented now to hundreds of people I've knew, lots of different venues and that in person. I'm talking about, and there's this thing where you've got to get through the laws and in it, to present the laws, because people who are unexposed to it, a lot of the crowd. This is the trouble when you've got a mixture of people who haven't got that foreknowledge. So you've got to start from scratch. It might be a little bit boring, for people who are already accustomed to the laws. That although sometimes they'll then say, "Ooh, you've explained it a little bit differently there," and they pick up a little bit more that time. So it's still got that effect.
I've always like really sort of like almost cringing, thinking, "Oh, I know some of these people have gone through this like so many times."
Yeah.
But
Then
they do.
they do get more, but the real value comes from the case studies, because if it's unless it's a short presentation, you'll pepper in some case studies, and you put some case studies in now as you're going through the laws, because it just helps to bring it to life quicker, doesn't it? Otherwise, it's like being all theory and exams without any practical. So then putting some case studies in there, and then you can almost hear the pennies dropping.
It's funny actually, because when we've got an audience, it's like you can almost hear in each person a penny drop, and this are all different stages through the presentation and or through the day or whatever, and you hear penny drop, oh, penny drop like this. You can detect it, can't you? You can, yeah, it's quite an amazing feeling that to help that process.
But if you just went straight to the case studies and you presented a spectacular case without the law underpinning it, it would still be amazing. Sort of like someone, rather than make up scenario, just like something that is miraculous when you don't know the laws. Then you present it, you think, oh well, that's amazing. You might explain the law as you go along, but if you haven't explained the law fully, it's only going to be a partial sort of section of it. And then there's only so much wow factors you can get from case studies. It's almost like, but you're keeping a secret back if you're not presenting the laws first. Present the laws. If it's still within the last couple of hours, if it's on part of a day presentation or a few hours presentation or something, that's still in the back of their mind what you said about whatever it is, about the germ layers, about something, and then you give a practical example which enshrines it, and then that's what she's on about, and it's still there. So it's almost as if your brain knows where to put it now. It's made sense of it. It's too theoretical when it's first given, maybe, and your presentations have gotten better over the years, and like I said, I've been inspired to try to do some software which helps to visualize and things like that to make it a bit more palatable and understandable, and less academic, because visualization tools really help. But yeah, I just think that give people the opportunity to have the laws in the simplest form you can get away with for the if it's beginner, you can't go right into constellations anyway. You just say there's advanced aspects of this that you can't even mention now, but it's still mind blowing. And then you've got a thirst for more. Then, oh, I want to find out more because what's these things they're on about? Um, but yeah, just a proportionate level of the laws, so that then when you're given this extra information in the form of case studies or something which is a bit more confined, you still got the opportunity for that to register and be absorbed.
I
Yeah.
think the other thing I wanted to mention, see, is that a lot of people come across this information when they are they're already in healing, or they've got something going on that there's obviously that they've been researching on how can I deal with this disease or whatever it is, symptom. And quite often people can approach this and they're already in a state of fear.
Mm.
And this is what I was saying about the time aspect, and it's kind of like I wanted to come back to it. I can't believe that for once I have said something and come back to it quite a while later. That's quite a thing, that is. Anyway, so they're already in a state of fear, and I've been there myself, and I thought I haven't got time for all this science. I just want to know what I need to do. I just want to know what I need to do. Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And what they don't get is that somebody who is in healing and still has a fear-based approach, right? Therefore, they haven't sort of looked at the whole thing, and it hasn't gone down into the subconscious. Their body is still reacting with panic and fear. It doesn't even matter if it goes in up here. It's still it's a biological response. It's not psychological. So you can think something that your body might not be feeling it. You need to have that. And I was in that state actually when I first came across I literally thought that I was going to die. I was convinced I was going to die. And our daughter was pregnant with our first grandchild. I was convinced I wasn't going to meet my grandchild. I was in horrendous fear, and it was actually because I went the other way actually when I came across GNM, and I thought to myself, if this is true, that means I'm not going to die, and therefore that's what pushed me to learn and fully. I had to learn so much that I was convinced that I wasn't going to die. It was like my impetus to learn. Is that thought that this is true. So I was trying to convince myself that it was true. So that drove me to. But I was more of approaching it as a devil's advocate. This can't be true. I had to have it proven to myself to fully believe it, because I was so believing I was going to die that I didn't have long left. But when I came across it, I was like, no, this can't be true. If it is, I'm not going to die. So then that drove me to, just to learn. And I was thinking, surely that can't be true. So I wanted more and more proof. It was like a hunger then but it was like I was trying to pick holes in it because I wanted to be sure. Because if I let go of that sort of fear I was in, that had become me, it become a part of me, this anxiety. I needed to be totally convinced that I could let go of that. So rather than be living each moment like it was my last, or there were certain ways that you can go in that state. Now, for me, I was retreating from family because I didn't want them to miss me when I was gone. I was separating myself and things, and I didn't want to sort of give that up. if it meant I was gonna. I know it's horrible. Looking back, it was just such a horrible frame of mind to be in. It was really, really awful. So I do really resonate with people, thinking like that. I've been there. But try and reframe this as it's not that you haven't got time to look at the science. It's if you look at the science and that and the evidence there convinces you, then you can let go. And you know that it's real, it's the real deal. I had to know it was the real deal to be able to let go of that anxiety. And that's what did it for me. That's what resolved my conflict. And then I got the attack thing, didn't I? Which is on my website. So yeah, that's it. That's kind of another way of looking at it, I guess. And there's a lot of people who say, learn it when you're healthy. If you're already along with, in healing or in the fear of it or whatever, then it's not for you. And I disagree because it's what saved me.
Yeah. Well, there's a slight. I mean, I was never thinking you were going to die,
I know.
so it was kind of like at
So I was
odds.
on my own with this anxiety.
Yeah, but it was from a place of never of being always been a bit more laid back. B, we a year before we watched all of the truth about cancer and I knew that backwards. It's like 14 hours worth in the original thing they did, and we'd edited it down to like 2.25 hours, and we have the bare essential information to present to people. Obviously, before we knew the biological laws. So even with that, the breasts are non-essential organs. I was thinking, look, there's a plethora of different approaches that we haven't even tried that we've got as a backup. So I was never in that feeling that you're going to die. Now, for you, probably felt less supportive. I try to be sympathetic and everything.
That is one of the side effects of living with somebody who knows GNM. It's like, oh, don't worry, it's only an epi crisis. Or, oh, don't worry, it's only this.
Yeah, well, I did. Yeah, but I did know that. But I was still, even though it was just my natural thing to be laid back and not assume the worst, effectively. And so, obviously, it might have had a calming effect on you, but it might have also been a bit more isolating.
Yeah,
So,
actually, looking back, it probably was.
so we know all this now, but
You learn as you go along, don't you? You learn
yeah,
so much, don't you? And you think, right, I would handle that slightly differently now because we've sort of really dug deep on the isolated factor and things.
yeah, but I think regardless, and there's been other situations in life which I just paralleling with really is that regardless, the thing is just not to panic, whatever. And with that, I think I helped you reduce your panic, maybe,
Yeah, because
which I think
didn't add fuel to the fire.
didn't add fuel to the fire. Whereas some people who've had experience and then they run around like headless chickens, and it just doesn't help. So, obviously we didn't know what we knew then, and things worked out the way they did. But regardless of the laws, even just not panicking and not getting brought up in fear and recomputing and just saying, is there a reason to panic? Because whatever it is, unless you're bleeding out or something like that,
Obviously, it's emergency situation.
there's emergency situations, and then hopefully your alpha brain will just kick in and just know what to do. But having the laws or something like that, you're going to know if it's an epic crisis situation or something, then you make informed decisions then. But just getting back to it in general, not panicking is always good advice, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was my mainstay, really. That was what I've always had in me.
I think with the healing aspect, I don't know if I don't know if I kind of made the point before we went on to the panic, is to see the laws as your healer, as understanding this will release me from fear, because fear is not helpful in healing. So you can be going through a healing phase and you can understand what you're going through, but your body doesn't, because it hasn't had that shift. It hasn't had, that deep shift. So if there's still fear in your body's going to keep on responding. So the best thing you can do is release that fear, and the best thing you can do to release that fear is to learn more. And
to learn enough. It's to learn enough.
Yeah. So, and without the science, like we say, even if you don't understand it, you can see it, you can see the evidence of it, you can see the wall chat and see the extent of it, all of the information on there. That information has come from somewhere, it's there. Somebody didn't just stand there and make it all that, that in itself is evidence. It's been enough evidence for some of my clients when they see it. You can see the penny drop in, well, this is a real thing. Look at all that work behind it, but until you sort of release that fear enough, then that will really enable the body to heal to its fullest potential. And the other thing is that, the subtitle of my book is "The Body Heals Itself." Don't know if it's that word for word.
It's not. The body heals. Yes, I was going to say one. Yeah,
the body heals itself, right? So yeah, the body. The body heals itself. We have that wisdom, we have that in us. We have to believe that, because if we're relying on somebody to take that fear away because they understand science and we don't, so maybe seeing a practitioner, and you need to fully realize it. You don't have to fully understand it. You need to fully realize it. I think that's the difference. Somebody else can't really take your fear away. They can on a surface level. They can make you feel better. And I'm not saying that, like some clients, they'll see me and they say, oh, I feel a lot better now because you've reassured me. I don't mean that, but you can't be reliant on that solely. That's what I'm saying. You need to still do the work, and so you can realize it for yourself.
If you're reliant on any, it's such a different system. I think that the big paradigm shift is relying on yourself, because you're relying on your body.
Not everybody can do that as well. This might not be you. Some people cannot. It's the same with freedom, with asserting your rights for certain things and what have you. Freedom comes at a cost, and that is responsibility. Then this is health freedom, basically, isn't it?
So it's like subcontracting your health to someone else. Now that can be a doctor or something like that. Whatever it is, you're passing over that to them, that responsibility, so you don't have to deal with it. It's almost like letting someone else just design a kitchen, but you haven't told them what you wanted. And then they design a kitchen, it'll be a perfectly good kitchen, but it's not what you want. Right? Maybe a really bad example, but my point is if you're not in line, if you're not in line with what's happening, the program not the program, I don't want to mix the terminology, what is being set off in a certain direction, you've got to keep in line with it. Not saying you've got to do everything yourself. You can have a support group, and you can have, the support you need with whatever the situation is. But if you think you can offload that responsibility, you're almost taking that out of your psychic brain organ relationship. The responsibility is something, it kind of doesn't work like that. You need,
but your body is not gonna, is responding to you, to your psychic brain organ. That is what it's not responding to. This is why I say that somebody else can't really take that fear away. They can ease it by reassuring you, but they can't take that fear away. It's a self-responsibility thing, and this is why we try to teach on a self-empowerment level. So as we don't want people to be reliant on us. We want to sort of give the knowledge, help people to absorb it, and then go off and do their thing.
Yeah, exactly.
In their way, their body does their thing. If they want to share it, then that's fantastic, because it's not all on us. Because big responsibility too. You know, we want to encourage others to be talking about it um and sharing it as well, don't we? So yeah, it's like sharing the good news that we don't have to be scared of help anymore.
I mean, a slightly neutral subject may be pain relief, which is, I say neutral in the sense it's not quite so heated. I mean, it's more momentary. Sometimes people will just want pain relief. And we can say, oh, you're in this healing phase. You've got this is, how long ago did this event occur? How long have you been out of the pain for? We're searching for how long they've been in healing now, to get a rough proportion how long this is going to be going on, the program. And then you can work out other aspects of the healing phase. Maybe they're in epicrisis and the pain is particularly acute. But some people just want to take a tablet, and you can't. It's almost like you've got to make a choice. You've got to do both ways. And I don't blame them for wanting to take a tablet or something in that moment, because the pain is there. But our experience and my experience is understanding that, having some understanding that this pain is temporary, or that was there, or right, this might be another few hours or whatever. In the case of bone pain, there's this thing that's like about 8 weeks that you can expect this phase, and that's quite consistent. So knowing some of these things that you're not going to get if you don't have some knowledge of the laws, just having a sort of oversimplified version, and the faith that resonates down into your biology, so that your biology believes it as well. I mean, your biology knows it, but it's like got to go through again that your whole system has faith in what's happening, and it just tends to downgrade it of its own accord. I'm talking about like pain or the panic or whatever. It's almost like
well, this is why I think now that when, like I said at the start, I might get like the initial, we're conditioned so much, aren't we, to be afraid of symptoms. You might get like the initial, oh, what's this? And then, but then within 30 seconds, 20 seconds, I'm like, I've talked myself,
10 seconds, 5 seconds.
Yeah. It might only be 5 seconds. Now, don't panic, it's only a whatever, indigestible morsel or whatever,
Funny enough, I heard something the other day, and they said it's 42 times for some reason. That's one of these magic, not magic, but one of the associations with 42. Have you heard other things? Yeah, but 42 times and then becomes like second nature. So, maybe you've got to have experience 42 times, and then that'll be the time it gets down to zero.
You should put the presentation of the 5 biological laws on loop 42 times.
And then, yeah, maybe.
Like a clockwork orange, then with the matchsticks on the eyes like this. Maybe.
Maybe my student Mike's friend 42 times is magic. I don't know. Anyway, just saying that, yeah, repetition, and it just gets less and less, and it gets quicker and quicker. So it's still not instantaneous. I just said the 42 times, maybe after 42 times, that's the point where it hits zero, and it just becomes instantaneous because it's gone through thinking enough, but yeah, it's interesting, these things, it's almost like practice. You practice enough times. You heard the story of this guy who trained himself to play tennis, and he
basketball.
No, it was tennis. Yeah, the choice point, that author, and he practiced serving in his mind, imitating the best servers in the world. The serve, you've got a fantastic service game, you practically won, or it gives you such an advantage. So he just got optimized his service game, but he did it in his mind, but he was practicing, but he's practicing in his mind, and this had been taken into sports and everything now, and in athletics. It's just a big off the track, off the field mentality that is a huge thing.
Do it 3 times. He practiced once for a certain amount of time physically, and then he practiced physically and mentally, and then he practiced only mentally, and it was the only mentally.
And mentally is where he had the breakthrough. But So it's a little bit like where Joe Dispenza's story where he they said he was going to be paralyzed. This is my understanding, after a bike accident, and he was completely incapacitated, and all he could do, so he wasn't in despair. His mental, meditative techniques, and he basically tried to fix his body mentally. Now he had a good understanding of, the structure of the body. What's the word I'm looking for? Physiology, anatomy, right? So he already had a good understanding of that. So you could imagine if he, was building it with Lego or whatever, he would build it accurately, and he was thinking that needs to be aligned, this needs to happen, or whatever. So that's an example of someone who's skilled in a particular field, who's going to have really good results by using that technique. But I think that in a lesser extent, people with lesser knowledge, the biological laws are almost like the thing blueprint of everything, of how our bodies work, the methods, what it's trying to do to help. It's trying to help at the end of the day.
No.
So you just using that same logic.
That really got him out of his body's way, so the body could just heal itself, because the body does heal itself in that sense in 8 weeks. So whether the instructions had any sort of that he was given his body, his spine to heal, had any impact, is anyone's sort of guess really. But from the GNM perspective, he basically believed that he could do that, and therefore he wasn't feared. He wasn't in fear. He didn't panic.
He had a time scale. I don't know if he had a time scale in his mind, but he certainly knew he'd come to the terms that he was going to be bedridden, or he basically in an awkward position. I think he was having to lie down in a certain way for weeks, and he was relying on other people, and he came to terms with that very quickly, which is my recollection. And he had that.
It's like acceptance of what's happening, isn't it? It's like acceptance. Okay, this has happened. It needs to follow this process.
Yeah. So it's to drawing on that. He had a very good understanding of physiology, anatomy, whichever, and then, but the biological laws give a similar sort of blueprint of how this was an injury, so this is, but it's the same thing. So by having the laws, even if they haven't fully resolved and computed and fully and being understood, the awareness and the sort of
just embracing the complexity of them. You don't have to know all of the figures that go in it. You just have to embrace the whole thing and be exposed to the whole thing to appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it said, people can recall something they've only seen for a split second, and they can recall detail if they're in hypnosis. Well, so you've been exposed to something, you haven't registered by there, but maybe some of it has filtered through some part that can recognize it, even if your busy brain at that particular, because you're in healing or because something else going on, hasn't fully realized it. There's something will go in. So yeah, it's
don't do yourself a disservice by bypassing the laws, basically, and being afraid of them, because they are the very thing that will release your fear.
But
that might be a good note to finish on, actually.
Okay.
But go on then.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, there's always room for improvement, and I've seen some like cartoony style versions. I myself are working on computerized things. There is always room for improvement, and if between different teachers, different people, we can collaborate and say what works, what's the most efficient, then let's just say, because let's just say you try and introduce a subject to someone, you've got a limited time, you want to get bare essentials to them within an hour. They've got an hour span. I'll watch something for an hour, or read something for an hour, or whatever it is, and they've got that limited capacity. And I know this is exactly what you try to do with the introduction book. It doesn't take long to read it, an hour or two, isn't it? A couple of hours, I think, to get that concept across. But there's always, the whole process is almost like a work in progress. Some people need videos, visual, whatever it is. Some people, oh, I'll listen to an audiobook and not, because they drive a lot and they can listen to things. I mean, all these different mediums or methods or whatever. Let's all just collaborate to see what comes up with that works, and people can give feedback on what worked for them, and we can say, okay, well, the audio, say we had a survey and there's like a dozen people, and just say, well, the audio is most effective, or the visual really did it for them, or whatever. And let's refine and prioritize, and let's try to help it make accessible for all, and we're open to collaborating with other people on all of that. So it was a good place to end, but I think it might just be worth adding that. So.
So thank you very much for your attention and listening to us ramble on. Hopefully it has helped. And we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.